The courtroom was heavy with silence, the kind that presses into your skin and makes every breath feel measured. The black man stood at the defendant's table, calm but visibly tense, hands loosely clasped in front of him. The officer, rigid and accusatory, paced before the jury, pointing sharply as he recounted events. He was aggressive, uncooperative. I had no choice but to restrain him. The man's eyes met the judge's, steady and unwavering. The judge's expression was unreadable, but beneath the gavel, a subtle tension vibrated. "Officer, you say restraint was necessary?" The officer's voice hardened. "Yes, Your Honor." He resisted arrest, threatened safety. A pause hung thick before the judge spoke again, voice quiet but commanding. "Mr. Thompson," he said the defendant's name deliberately, "is this true?" Thompson shook his head slowly. "No, Your Honor, I was calm. I was explaining." Murmurs stirred the courtroom. The officer's jaw tightened. The judge's gaze sharpened. "Enough!" His tone cut through the room like a knife. "This court values truth above all." The officer's shoulders stiffened. A flicker of doubt crossed his face, but he masked it quickly. "Your Honor, with all due respect, I'm only reporting what happened." The judge leaned forward slightly. "And yet I see a different story." He pulled a file from his bench, flipping it open deliberately. "Mr. Thompson is my superior at the department. His record is impeccable." A shocked silence fell. The officer's eyes widened, lips pressed tight. The judge's voice was low, almost cold. "I expect respect for the law, and for those who serve it honorably." Thompson's posture relaxed, a quiet dignity settling over him. The room shifted, in the power balance unmistakably realigning. The judge's measured words held weight beyond the courtroom. The officer lowered his gaze. "Understood, Your Honor." The judge nodded once, firm but not unkind. "Let us proceed with clarity and respect." The gavel tapped. The room exhaled. In that charged moment, silence spoke louder than accusations. Justice had been quietly reclaimed, not with anger, but through calm authority and unyielding truth. The courtroom remained tense as the judge's words echoed softly yet firmly through the chamber. Officer Reynolds shifted uncomfortably, his usual confident posture beginning to falter under the weight of the revelation. His eyes darted briefly to Mr. Thompson, whose calm composure never wavered. "Sir," the judge continued, voice steady but heavy, "I expect all parties to remember the decorum owed to this court. Mr. Thompson has served this department with distinction. Any allegations must be founded on facts, not assumptions." Reynolds cleared his throat, swallowing hard. "Your Honor, I stand by my report, but I did not intend disrespect." There was a crack in his voice, subtle but present. The room noticed. Thompson's eyes softened yet carried a quiet strength. "Officer, I respect your duty, but misunderstanding and prejudice have no place here." A whispered murmur passed through the audience. The power in those words resonated deeper than any raised voice. The judge nodded approvingly. "This court acknowledges the importance of respect and truth. Let this be a reminder that justice must be tempered with humility." Reynolds bowed, his head slightly, the invisible mask of arrogance slipping away. "I will be more mindful, Your Honor." Thompson gave a small nod, reclaiming his space with dignity, untouched by conflict. The judge looked at the room, voice lowering but clear. "Let us proceed, ensuring fairness guides our path." The tension that had gripped the courtroom began to ease, replaced by a fragile but genuine understanding. In that moment, power shifted quietly but decisively, through restraint, recognition, and the steady voice of authority. Silence settled once more, but this time it spoke of something new. Respect earned, justice served, and the subtle but profound reclaiming of dignity. The gavel came down softly, and the court moved forward. The courtroom air was thick with anticipation as the next witness was called. Officer Reynolds took his seat, visibly less assured than before. Thompson remained composed, eyes calm, body steady. The judge watched both men carefully, sensing the fragile balance in the room. "Officer Reynolds," the judge began, voice measured, "please recount the events of that day with precision." Reynolds nodded, clearing his throat. "Yes, Your Honor. I approached Mr. Thompson on a call regarding a disturbance. When I asked for his cooperation, he responded calmly at first, but then he faltered, searching for the right words, the tension in his voice betraying uncertainty. Then I felt he was uncooperative. I tried to restrain him." A silence followed. The judge's eyes narrowed slightly. "Officer, were there any witnesses who could verify this claim?" Reynolds glanced at the courtroom, then back at the judge. "No, Your Honor." Thompson shifted slightly, voice quiet but firm. "I explained the situation clearly. I was never aggressive." The judge's gaze softened as he addressed Reynolds. "Remember, officer, assumptions can lead to grave mistakes." Reynolds swallowed, nodding. "I understand." A slight murmur ran through the courtroom. The judge stood, voice resolute. "This court reminds all that respect, patience, and understanding must guide law enforcement and those they serve alike." He looked at Thompson. "You may return to your seat." As Thompson walked back, a subtle nod passed between him and the judge, unspoken acknowledgement of truth and dignity. The courtroom tension ebbed away, replaced by a quiet respect. Justice was not declared with anger or spectacle, but with calm. Voices, measured words, and the unyielding power of truth. The judge called the next case. The judge's gavel struck softly, signaling a brief recess. The courtroom emptied slowly, murmurs swirling like a restless wind. Officer Reynolds sat alone, the weight of the day pressing heavily on his shoulders. He stared at the polished wood of the bench, thoughts tangled in doubt and regret. Across the hall, Thompson leaned against a pillar, steady and unshaken. His calm presence radiated quiet dignity, a stark contrast to the turmoil beneath the surface of the officer he'd just faced. A clerk approached Reynolds cautiously. "Sir, the judge expects professionalism, but also fairness. Today was a reminder, and for all." Reynolds nodded slowly, voice low. "I lost sight of that. It won't happen again." Thompson overheard the exchange and stepped forward. "Officer Reynolds," he said, voice gentle but firm, "we all make mistakes. What matters is how we move forward." Reynolds looked up, meeting Thompson's eyes. For a moment, the room held its breath. Two men on opposite sides, connected by shared humanity. "I appreciate that," Reynolds said quietly. "I want to do better, to see beyond fear." Thompson nodded. "That's where change begins." The two men shared a brief, respectful nod before parting ways, each carrying a piece of that fragile hope. The courtroom reconvened, the atmosphere taut but tempered by the earlier revelations. The judge's voice cut through the murmurs with steady authority. "Let us proceed with the next phase. Truth must guide every step." Officer Reynolds took the stand once more, this time with a quieter resolve. "I acknowledge my earlier misjudgments, Your Honor. I acted hastily, influenced by fear rather than facts." Thompson sat with a composed nod, the weight of dignity unmistakable. The jury watched, some faces softening with understanding. The judge addressed the jury directly. "This case is a reminder that justice requires both courage and humility. We must question our biases and seek truth beyond appearances." A hush fell over the room as evidence was reviewed, but the undercurrent had shifted, respect now threaded. Through the exchanges, subtle but powerful, Reynolds met Thompson's gaze, an unspoken apology lingering in the air. Thompson returned it with grace, signaling a silent acceptance, but not forgetting. The judge concluded, "Let this trial be a testament to restraint, fairness, and the quiet strength found in speaking truth calmly." The gavel came down with Finality, sealing not only the verdict, but a moment of change. The courtroom began to empty, but a heavy stillness lingered, wrapping around the remaining few like a thick fog. Officer Reynolds gathered his belongings slowly, each movement deliberate, weighed down by more than just physical fatigue. He glanced toward Thompson, who was standing by the exit, composed, yet undeniably changed by the day's events. Reynolds hesitated, then stepped forward. "Mr. Thompson." Thompson turned, surprise flickering in his eyes, but quickly replaced by openness. "I want to say thank you," Reynolds said quietly, "for your patience, your dignity. I've been wrong, and I want to do better." Thompson regarded him thoughtfully, then nodded slowly. "It takes strength to admit that. I hope you find the courage to see beyond fear." A moment passed between them, thick with unspoken understanding, a fragile bridge rebuilt. Reynolds extended his hand. Thompson looked down briefly, then accepted it firmly. The two men stood, hands clasped, a symbol not just of resolution but of progress. The courtroom lights dimmed as the last few people filed out. The judge remained seated, eyes thoughtful, hands folded atop the bench. Thompson stood nearby, calm, but his mind was racing, memories of years spent navigating a system that often saw him as less than. Yet today, something had shifted, not with loud declarations, but with quiet authority. The judge's voice broke the silence, soft but deliberate. "Let this case remind us all, power must never silence truth. Respect must guide every interaction, no matter the roles we play." Thompson nodded, the weight of those words settling deep within him. Outside, footsteps echoed faintly. The world moving on, but perhaps a little changed. Back inside, the officer's once rigid posture had softened. He approached the bench, voice subdued. "Your Honor, I realize now how easily bias can cloud judgment. I am committed to doing better." The judge regarded him steadily. "Acknowledgement is the first step toward justice." The courtroom emptied, slowly, but the silence left behind spoke volumes of power tested, dignity reclaimed, and justice quietly restored. The judge looked directly at Officer Reynolds. "Your conduct today has been noted. Tell me, do you understand the weight your position carries?" Reynolds swallowed hard. "Yes, Your Honor, I do." "Good, because the law is blind, but our hearts must remain open. Bias has no place here." Reynolds lowered his gaze, voice quieter. "I will reflect on my actions and strive to do better." Thompson shifted in his seat but spoke calmly. "Respect is earned, but it begins with being seen." The judge nodded. "Precisely. This court expects professionalism, fairness and restraint from all its officers." Reynolds gave a slight nod. "I understand, sir." The judge paused, then said, "Let us continue with fairness guiding the process." Reynolds met Thompson's eyes briefly. There was no anger, only a shared recognition of what had passed. Thompson's voice was soft but steady. "We all have room to grow." Reynolds gave a small, sincere nod. "Thank you for your patience." The judge called the next witness, and the courtroom shifted focus. But the balance had changed. The quiet strength of truth had reclaimed its place. The judge fixed Officer Reynolds with a steady gaze, his voice calm but firm. "Officer, you hold a position of authority that demands more than just obedience to orders. It demands judgment, fairness, and above all, respect for every individual, regardless of their background." Reynolds swallowed, his usual confidence shaken. "Yes, Your Honor, I understand that now more clearly than ever." The judge's eyes didn't waver. "Good. It is not enough to simply follow the letter of the law. One must also embrace its spirit. Justice without empathy is blind justice, and it can do great harm." Reynolds shifted in his seat, voice quieter but sincere. I admit, I let my fears and assumptions cloud my judgment. It won't happen again. From the defense table, Thompson's voice broke through, steady and measured. Respect begins with recognition, seeing a person, not a stereotype. That's the foundation for real justice. The judge nodded approvingly. Precisely. And that foundation must guide every interaction, every decision, every moment in this courtroom and beyond. Reynolds looked directly at Thompson, a flicker of remorse in his eyes. I'm sorry for the pain I caused, and I'm committed to change. Thompson met his gaze calmly. Acknowledgement is a start. True change requires action. The judge leaned forward, voice resolute. Let this case be a lesson to all, that justice is not only about laws, but about humanity. We proceed now with fairness and clarity. Reynolds nodded slowly, the weight of responsibility settling over him like never before. Thompson sat back, dignity intact, the silent power of truth radiating through him. The courtroom shifted as the next phase began, but something fundamental had changed. A quiet realignment of power, respect, and the promise of better days. The judge's gaze swept across the courtroom, resting briefly on each face before settling back on Officer Reynolds. Officer Reynolds, you have acknowledged your mistakes today, but acknowledgement alone is not enough. The public trusts you to protect and serve without prejudice. How do you intend to restore that trust? Reynolds exhaled slowly, his voice steady but humble. Your Honor, I realize now that I allowed bias to influence my actions. I failed to see the person before me and instead reacted out of fear and assumption. Moving forward, I commit to undergoing additional training, engaging in community outreach, and continuously reflecting on my conduct to ensure fairness and respect in every encounter. The judge nodded thoughtfully. A sincere commitment is a vital first step. Remember, your role extends beyond enforcement. It is a responsibility to uphold justice with integrity and compassion. Thompson leaned forward slightly, voice calm but resolute. I appreciate Officer Reynolds' willingness to learn, but more importantly, we need a system that encourages accountability and continuous growth, not just isolated moments of realization. Oh, murmur of agreement rippled through the courtroom. The judge acknowledged this with a slight nod. That is an essential point. Justice is a living process, requiring constant vigilance and humility. Reynolds met Thompson's gaze with newfound respect. I understand. I will do everything in my power to live up to those standards. Thompson's expression softened. We all have the capacity to change. What matters is embracing that capacity. Honestly, the judge raised his gavel, voice steady and clear. Let this proceeding be a reminder that justice thrives where courage meets humility. Let us move forward with renewed commitment to fairness and truth. The gavel struck decisively, signaling not only the continuation of the trial, but the beginning of a deeper reckoning, one that transcended this courtroom and touched the very heart of justice itself. The courtroom fell into a thoughtful silence as the judge's words lingered in the air. Officer Reynolds sat upright, a weight visibly lifting from his shoulders, though the journey ahead remained long. He glanced at Thompson, whose quiet strength filled the room without a single raised voice. Reynolds spoke first, voice steady, but earnest. Your Honor, I know trust is earned, not given. I plan to engage more deeply with the communities I serve, to listen, to learn, and to hold myself accountable every day. Thompson nodded approvingly. Accountability is more than a word. It's a practice, a daily choice to confront our biases and act with integrity. The judge smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carried years of wisdom. This court hopes that today's lessons resonate beyond these walls. Justice requires more than laws. It demands hearts open to change. Reynolds' eyes flicked back to Thompson. Thank you for showing me that dignity and respect can't be mandated. They must be lived. Thompson's voice was gentle but firm. And that starts with seeing each other fully, beyond fears, beyond assumptions. The courtroom atmosphere shifted subtly. A shared understanding blossomed in the quiet spaces between words. The power dynamic, once rigid and sharp, softened into something more human. The judge raised his gavel once more. Let us proceed, carrying this spirit forward. May fairness guide every step we take. The gavel came down with a clear finality. The trial moved on, but the echoes of respect and truth settled deep in the hearts present. The courtroom emptied slowly, voices reduced to murmurs and footsteps fading into the halls. Officer Reynolds paused near the exit, his face shadowed with reflection. He turned back to see Thompson gathering his belongings, calm and steady as ever. Reynolds approached hesitantly. "Mr. Thompson," he began, voice low but sincere. "Today was difficult for all of us. I want to apologize for my actions and the pain I caused." Thompson looked up, eyes clear and composed. "I accept your apology. But more than that, I hope this marks the start of real change." Reynolds nodded, the weight of those words sinking in. "It will. I promise to work harder, to listen, to learn, to be better." A brief silence stretched between them, full of meaning. No need for grand speeches, just two men standing, connected by a shared hope for justice. Thompson extended his hand. Reynolds grasped it firmly. In that handshake was respect reclaimed, dignity restored. The judge watched from afar, a quiet witness to this fragile moment of reconciliation. Outside, the city moved on, no louder, no brighter, but somewhere beneath the noise, a seed had been planted, a seed of understanding, of courage, of justice, whispered softly through calm voices.